Okay, so I'm having an issue with our '01 Dodge Grand Caravan, and what's going on is that there's a crank but no start, but also at the same time, when cranking, there's this noise which I'm going to go ahead and show you and let you hear what that noise is. And as of right now, I have no clue what it is. I thought it was a starter when I used my wireless chassis ear and I put one of my sensors on the starter, and that's where I heard the noise coming from. Well, when I bought a new starter from AutoZone, put the new starter in, and guess what? It's making the same noise. So far, I've been able to verify that my first thought was maybe the Flexplate might be damaged, but I did check that and I didn't see any missing teeth or anything, but I'm going to recheck that again. But also it did rotate, it did turn when I cranked the engine, so the Flexplate was turning. And then also I verified that the drive belt, or also known as the Serpentine belt, was turning as well. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to hook up my scan tool, see if there are any codes, because I believe I have two issues: the noise and then the no start, the crank with no start. And so I'm trying to verify the noise first. That's my goal, and I may need you guys' help with this, because if I can't figure this out, maybe you guys would be able to point me in the right direction as far as, you know, what's going on. So yeah, so I'm gonna hook up my scan tool, see if there are any codes. None popped up when, oh, let me tell you what happened. Okay, so I was driving, the check engine light came on because of a loose gas cap, and I was on my way to work. And so instead of driving, you know, an hour to work with the check engine light on, I pulled over, turned the engine off, and reset the code. And then when I tried to crank the engine, it just cranked, no start. I think I did that about maybe 3-4 times. And then all of a sudden, when I was cranking the last time, it sounded like something broke, and then it started making that noise. And yeah, I haven't been able to get her started ever since. Notice the mileage, 324,398 miles. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the Serpentine belt off, spin all the pulleys, see if I hear any noise from that. Then I'm also going to crank the engine manually and see if I hear any kind of noise while I'm rotating it. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 22. Okay, so I hooked up my scan tool and there were no codes. I took off the Serpentine belt, which you can see here, and I spun all the pulleys and I didn't hear anything. All of them moved smooth and everything like that. But listen to this. So as you can see, I have my ratchet on the harmonic balancer bolt here. I was rotating the engine, just trying to see if I heard anything, right? So listen to this. Hear that? That's the chain. That is actually the chain. And I don't believe it should be sounding like that. Listen to that. Hear that? So I honestly believe I have an issue with the chain. I mean, yeah, it's moving and everything, but you know, the camshaft above, you know, right, that's up there on the top part of the engine where the lifters are, you know, it sounds like, see, listen to that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the oil pan, take that down, because I'll be able to see the chain from underneath there, you know, just to verify, because that just doesn't sound right to me. Okay, so I got the timing cover off, and I confirmed that, yeah, the timing chain is stretched. And let me show you how stretched it is. Look at that. This is like almost a couple inches.
Motion detected at the alley.
Look at that. Okay, so what was going on is that the crankshaft here, the gear, it would turn, but because there was so much slack on the chain that, you know, look, it's like that. This side is just as bad. It's not as bad, but this side is like terrible. And I was able to confirm that by taking off the oil pan. Sorry, I was trying to film it, and then my battery ran out on my phone. So I didn't get a chance to finish filming it. So let me show you. So what I did was I put the crankshaft bolt back in, and I'm going to show you what it was doing. So you see that? So look, so you see it's turning, but look at what it's doing. The chain, all it's doing is just going over the camshaft gear. And so I believe that this is what my problem was. So because the camshaft gear wasn't turning, the camshaft sensor wasn't picking up the engine rotation, and therefore it basically, you know, wouldn't allow the engine to start. Now, of course, I'm not quite sure about the noise, but this is definitely an issue here. So look at that. You know, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this off, and just to give you a closer look. So I even saw, if you look on the teeth on there, you can see marks from the chain. Now that could have been because when I was trying to start it, it wasn't, the camshaft gear wasn't turning. But this could also, I believe this has been something that's been going on for quite some time, and I kind of ignored the small little signs of it, and of course then, you know, had this, you know, failure here. And what I mean by this is I saw metal pieces a couple times within the last year when I changed the oil, and it was just a little bit, you know. So, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe it's just, you know, from where in the engine, or it was some already in the pan, you know, before I started draining the oil and stuff like that. And I really didn't see it much after that. But let me tell you, when I took the oil pan off, and the dipstick, the oil pan pickup tube, it actually had metal stuck into it, which I'm thankful there was a screen on there. I'll show it to you. It prevented all of that metal, because these were some chunks, from going around into the engine. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this out now. Compare the chain. This is an aftermarket chain, by the way. This is not the OEM chain. I changed this back in, I think it was 2015. And I think at that time it was about 170 some thousand miles on her. So here are the camshaft gears, and you can see the difference between the two. So look at this one on top. Look at how worn down the teeth are on there. Look at that. Yep. Look at that. See if I can get it better. So, like I said, I don't know if this worn down over time or if it happened when I was trying to start the engine, you know, because what happened was the camshaft sensor didn't sense the camshaft turning, and so, you know, therefore it wouldn't start. But you could see, look at the way the teeth are. Look at that. These are fine here, but again, I'm thinking that maybe this was the bottom where the chain wasn't on, you know, once it's stopped. But I believe these teeth up here, these were wearing down. And then with the chain being stretched, it just, yeah, it just, you know, it wasn't tight enough. It was too loose. And then this is the new one. Another thing I noticed is that this one says made in the USA right here. You probably can't see it because of my flash. This one doesn't have made in the USA on it. So I don't know if this particular metal for this was not as good. The chain says it's made in the USA, and this is the new chain. And as you can see, I tried to line both of them up together. It doesn't look like they look almost the same size and length, but I'll know once I put it on. But I believe that really the issue is that the teeth on the gear. Okay, so this is the part number. Got it from AutoZone. That's the part number there. And it comes with everything. It comes with both the crankshaft gear, the camshaft gear, the timing chain, and then also the gasket, the camshaft gasket as well. All right, so I got the new timing chain on. So just wanted to show you this. So look at that, hardly any slack in there. So just make sure that you line up the camshaft gear. There's the arrow there, and the crankshaft gear as well. Make sure you line those both up. This one should be at 12 o'clock. And this one's 6 o'clock. And then also there's a spot on the chain where the links are a little different. So this one here and then this one here. And you'll know how to line it up because you see there's a little notch there. There's one up there. All right, so I'm gonna just go ahead and put everything back together and test everything out. Okay, so I went ahead and when I removed the oil pan pickup tube, this is the old one obviously, and if you can look right down in there, I'm trying to get a little closer, you look down in there, you can see pieces of metal that are stuck in the actual screen here, and actually it was a lot more than this. So instead of, I tried to flush it out through this end here, as well as this end with compressed air as well as brake fluid, and it got most of it out, but I'm still not comfortable with this. So I went ahead and just ordered a brand new one here. Okay, as you can see, this is how the screen is supposed to look, and this is a OEM part, and this is, let me see, oh, you know what, you can't really see the part number, but as you can see here, this is it. So I'm going to go ahead and install this new one here, and then now let me just show you the inside of the engine from underneath. Okay, so I'm facing the rear of the vehicle, and check it out. As you can see, there's a timing chain. There's a new one that I just put on. So if you ever need to verify again if this is loose or not, just remove the oil pan. That is like the simplest and easiest thing that you can do, because you can always, that only take about maybe 30 minutes or so compared to taking everything off, the timing chain cover and everything on that's attached to it, to verify that, because you can see all the way up in there. See, you can see all the way up in there on both sides, and you can check it with a long screwdriver as far as if it's loose or not. But yeah, so this is what our engine looks like at over 300,000 miles. There's some varnish on there and everything, but outside of that, to me it looks really good. Yeah, you guys can comment and you know, let me know what you guys think. But yeah, it looks really good. You know, like I said, we've been running fully synthetic oil since 171,000 miles and everything. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of show this to you. So I'm going to go ahead. I've already cleaned the surface here on the engine block as well as the oil pan itself. I'm going to go ahead and install it, and then I'm going to go ahead and see if that fixed my problem. Alright, so here's an update. The noise is still there. As a matter of fact, the symptoms have not changed, even with doing all of that work, which is really kind of blowing my mind. I really am clueless as to what is causing the problem. I'm just kind of dumbfounded. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just do a few tests, little simple tests. I did this before, but I'm gonna do it again. So I've got my battery tester here. Let me see if you could see it there. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just show you the charge on the battery. Now, I did do the what was I about to say? Oh, I lost my train of thought. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Oh, I charged the battery. I had charged it before I had did my work, before, you know, after I was finished with all the repairs, before I did, you know, tried to start it up and everything. So the battery, I think it was about 12.7 volts or something like that. So, you know, which isn't an issue or a problem or anything. But I did crank it over like 4 times, so the battery may have gone down some. Not necessarily to the point whereas it shouldn't start, but I just want to test it anyway. Okay, so yeah, so as you can see here, it's got 12.7 volts. The cold cranking amp is 737 amps, and it's at 92%. So the battery is actually good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and crank her over. I'm doing 2 things with this. One, I want you to see the RPM while I'm cranking the engine. The RPMs are actually moving, so which I believe is an indication that the camshaft sensor is actually working and the camshaft is rotating. But also to listen to the fuel pump prime, which you may not hear on the video. So I'm going to do that first. Okay, so I heard it prime. This code here, this is the only code that popped up. And basically, that's just that the battery was unplugged. So observe. So you see it? And you probably heard it too. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to test for fuel pressure, as well as I'm going to test for, what else was I going to test for? Oh, yeah, and I'm going to test for spark. All right, so I got everything all set up. Got my fuel pressure gauge set here. The specs for the fuel pressure should be around 49 psi, and then I have my spark plug right here. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it. I clipped it over here because I didn't want it falling over or land on the engine, because it can cause a fire, but then also because the spark can ignite something. So I'm going to go ahead and crank the engine over, and yeah, I'll see what the readings are. Okay, so fluid pressure is good. Looks like it's about 50, 51 psi, but I did not see spark from the spark plug. I'm gonna actually change this out because this is an old spark plug. I'm gonna change it out and see if maybe it's because the electrode is corroded or whatever. So hold on. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I just want to show you that the engine is cranking. So pay attention to the flywheel, which is kind of like over there. You're gonna see that rotate, and then the pulley here. All right, so after doing some thinking, doing some research, I've got a couple more things I'm going to verify. The first thing, though, is I wanted to let you know that I did confirm that I am getting spark. I didn't ground the spark plug that I was using to test with. That's why there was no spark. So I redid that test. I didn't show it, but I am getting spark. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove all 6 of the spark plugs, and I'm going to use a borescope to look inside to check the piston as well as to check the valves, to both the intake and the exhaust valve, to see if they're damaged. Because what I found out is, which I didn't know this, well, I actually had the wrong information. I thought that this particular engine, the 3.8 liter V6, was a non-interference engine, which of course is the reason why I didn't suspect valve crashing. So basically what I think actually happened is, I think the valves got bent. I don't know how many, I don't know how much damage was done, but I'm about positive that that's what it is. And the reason why is because when that camshaft gear, the teeth wore off of it, the crankshaft was still turning. So, which means that both of them, it was out of time. And when it's out of time, well, you know that an interference engine, that both that there's a possibility of getting bent valves. So I'm gonna peek inside of each one of those. I'm not going to record it live, but which I'm gonna show you here, this is my borescope that I'm going to be using. It has where I can record it, so what I'm going to do is I'll just play it back after I view all of the the cylinders and the intake and the exhaust valves, and kind of see what's going on. I'm also going to, I'm not sure, I'm going to be using compressed air. I'm going to do a leak down test. So I'm going to hook up my air hose to this here. I'm going to pressurize each cylinder to about 80 psi, maybe 100 psi, and see if it holds pressure. So these are just a couple things that I'm going to be testing out, and I'll report back. Oh yeah, also this borescope, it only has one camera, but it has a mirror on it that you can see for 45-degree angle. So I'm hoping I'll be able to look at both of the valves in each cylinder doing that. Alright, so here's an update. So I went ahead and cylinders 1, 4, and 6, I went ahead and tried to take a look at the valves, and it was really hard to see with my camera. It's like I could see one, like for example in cylinder 1, I was able to see both of them, but because of the angle of my camera, it was really hard to tell if they were damaged or not. And that was pretty much for the rest of them. The rest of them I was only able to kind of see just one valve. I know both of them are in there, but I really couldn't see the details of it. And so the other thing I did was I did top dead center on each one of them, and I tried compressed air, and the air just shot through. it never went above like 40 or 50, and it was not holding compression. So I know there's a problem with the valves. I can't tell if they're bent or not from looking at the valve, taking the valve cover off and looking at the rocker arms and everything like that. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to crank the engine over to see how the rocker arms move and see if all of the valves are moving. Because I'm trying to minimize tearing stuff apart and trying to troubleshoot before I start trying to replace the valves and find out that that's not what it is or it's something else. So that's what I'm about to do now. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to crank it over, and I'm going to see if because all of these should move. Yeah, all of them should move. Alright, so check this out. So after inspecting everything, closely, the valves, the rocker arms, which I can't see the seats of them like under here yet. So I'm gonna remove the rocker arm assembly, and then the push rods. Look at what I found. Okay, so these are, let me show you this first. So these are the valves for cylinder 2, cylinder 4, and cylinder 6. This one that's kind of angled more, which is 3 of them, this one here, this one, and this one, these are for the air intake valve. Okay, so check it out. You see the rod, the push rod there? It looks pretty straight, right? Well, check out the exhaust one. Look at that, it's bent. Let me focus on that. And it's bent on each of the cylinders. See? Look at that. This one's even worse. And this is on cylinder 6. So in order for me to check these out, again, I'm going to remove all of these bolts here, all right, and take the rocker arm shaft off, and then I'll be able to pull the rods out. And I'm hoping that this is the only problem, and it's like that on the rear valve cover too as well. So I decided I'm gonna just replace all of them. Now the only downside to this is, the only way I'm gonna know that this is actually what's the issue is putting everything back together and trying to start it. The other thing I want to take a look at is I'm going to use my bar scope camera to look down in each one of these holes here to take a look at where the push rods seat. I can't think of the name of it. I'll put it in the video to see if they're damaged, in any kind of way. Go ahead and remove the right side valve cover off, which is the back part of the engine. See, and looking at the extension rods there, it looks like there's a couple of them that are bent. It's really hard for me to tell, only because of the angle, and it's not a lot of space back here, like it is on the front here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to replace all of the rods, so it's a total of 12, and hope that fixes my problem, and I want to go that route because this is like the simplest and easiest thing to do, instead of having to take all this off and removing the head and all of that, and then I can just test it after I'm done, because that'll be really easy, that'll be real simple. And I believe I should be able to replace these without having to remove each valve. So what I can do is compress the spring, so that way it'll take the pressure off of here, and then just take it out. So that's that's my plan. So I'll come back when I start working on it, and let you know how it goes. All right, so I went ahead and removed the push rods, and as you can see, You see, this is from cylinder 2, 4, and 6. And, you know, again, these are the exhaust rods. And look how bent they are. The other ones look like they're pretty straight. And what I did was I compared them. This is a brand new one. So, yeah, they look pretty straight. Yeah, they look pretty straight. But you know what? I'm going to change all of them out anyway since I have them. But yeah, so look at how damaged they are. Now, as far as the rocker arm shaft, these seem to be in good. The shaft and the rocker arm seem to be in pretty good shape. Okay, so you have the part where, you know, right here, where the top of the push rod, you know, goes into, you know, like that, and then the other end goes down on the other part that connects to the camshaft. So all of these are fine. See, they move freely. What I did notice though is this one is from cylinder 2. It's like really hard to turn. So I think this one got damaged. And even when I remove this piece here, so you see, this is the rocker arm for the exhaust valve. See how freely it moves? Look at that. But look at this one. You see it? It's like it doesn't move freely. So I'm gonna go ahead and order another one of these so I could replace this on here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and check each cylinder, you know, see if with the valves being all the way closed because of the tension on the springs, they should be closed and sealed up, and that'll at least let me know that the valves aren't bent. Okay, so here's another thing I noticed now that I've removed the rocker arm shaft. Cylinder 2 valve, the intake as well as the exhaust. Oh man, I got it mixed up now. Well, these two valves, they're down further compared to cylinders 4 and 6 valve. Now, I don't think you'll be able to see it on the camera, but from my view, it looks like they're down just a little bit further, which that will indicate that those valves are bent. But I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna fill them up with the cylinder with air and see if it leaks out. I'm gonna do all 3. Okay, so I've got my compressed air hooked up to cylinder 2, and let me go ahead and show you this. So as you can see, the valves aren't closing, so that's an indication that the valve in cylinder 2, one or both, are damaged. So, well, that means I got to remove the heads off of here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same check on all the other 5 cylinders, and yeah, see what happens. So I went ahead, removed the rocker arm shaft, and you know, everything on here is fine. All of the rocker arms move freely, no problem there. And there's the push rods, and actually on this one there's actually a few more push rods that were actually damaged. Really, it's only this one here and this one here that didn't get bent, as you can see. So I went ahead and did a compression test on cylinder number 5, and the air just went through. So yeah, the valves are bent on the right side of the engine too. So the only way to fix that is to remove the heads, both heads off of the engine, and replace the valves. What a bummer. Okay, so I got the left head off, and as you can see here, you know, not too bad, you know, for an engine that's got over 300,000 miles on it. There's some carbon buildup, not a lot, you know. I can, you know, it's not a real thick coating on the cylinders there, and the walls on the inside look pretty shiny too. But yeah, I confirmed that, yeah, the valves actually hit the piston. You can look at the indentation right here, okay, and it's pretty much in the same spot on each one. So this is cylinder 2, this is cylinder 4, and then this is cylinder 6. So it doesn't look like the pistons got damaged or anything. I'm going to clean all this up. I'm also going to check these hydraulic lifters too. I'm going to pull those out, you know, test and make sure that they're okay. I believe they are, but since I got all this apart, hey, I might as well just go ahead and, you know, check everything. And this is the right side of the engine, the cylinder block, and there is the intake for cylinder, I think this is 5. And as you can see down in there, you can see that one's open too. Same thing with this one here. This is cylinder 1, and that one's looks like it's a little open. Maybe this one might be closed. And this one, it looks like it's open as well. So I'm gonna do the back side later after I do the front. I want to do the front first because it was easier access, and this way, you know, I can work out any kind of issues that I had. And oh, just wanted to show you this too. I left the crossover pipe in here because I'm really not trying to remove this thing. I'm hoping that for the back head that I can actually just unbolt the exhaust manifold from it and then just lift it out. Okay, so here's the head here. So this is the exhaust valve, and as you can see it's open, and it even looks bent. So, and this is this is the intake here, and it's like that on each cylinder, and this was like, you know, really bad here. So yep, I'm gonna be changing all these out, and I'm on to test the springs, you know, to make sure that they're up to spec, because I may have to change those out too as well. All right, so yeah, yeah, when I come back, I'll, you know, update you. It'll probably be on the back part back there if there's anything. So it's amazing. This damage came just by cranking the engine over. Ain't that something? But you know what? It could have been worse though. Oh yeah, and here, these are the head bolts, which they all look really good as far as the threads. Look at that. They're not, all of them are the same. This is the one on the bottom. This is the one that's like on the outer parts. That's why the head's rusted. But when you look at the ones, this is from inside the head. Look at how nice that looks. But I'm going to be replacing these with new bolts because the owner's manual or the repair manual says to do that. All right, so yeah, let me get to work. Yeah, I'm going to have to clean this all up. Oh yeah, and another thing. Here, let me show you this. So in case if you ever decide to do this, it's not necessary to remove the fuel rail. You can if you want to. I choose not to because I removed this thing a few times already, and I've replaced the seals. I already have more seals in case if I had to do it. But all I did was disconnect the wire here, and I just pulled the whole thing out. You know, and you just got to be careful when you're cleaning it and moving it around. And also, it does have fuel in it, so make sure you cap it, drain this out into an approved fuel container, and then put a cap on the end of it. Okay, so I am all finished. So these are the new valves here. So, you know, I went ahead and cleaned those, you know, because I don't want any put it dirty parts into the head. And then, hey, check out the head. It turned out real nice. Look how clean it is. Sorry, my flash turned off. Look how clean it is. It looks really nice. Literally got all the dirt and oil and everything off of it, and then even a varnish on the inside. It really looks like almost a brand new head. So I did go ahead and remove the valve stem seals, which I'm gonna put the new ones on there. I also used compressed air to kind of dry out the passages. Here's the rocker arm assembly. I went on ahead and cleaned that as well. As well as all of the springs and the keepers and stuff like that. These garments here, these are for the valve cover. And this is the cleaner that I use. And this cleaner works really nice, especially because of the fact this is aluminum. And from what I read online, there are certain cleaners you just can't use on aluminum because it'll damage it. Well, this oil eater here, this is actually safe to use on aluminum. Now, obviously, I wouldn't soak my parts in it, but definitely cleaning it, and then just make sure you hose it off with water. So the mix ratio for this is 3 parts water to 3 gallons of water to 1 gallon of cleaning solution. The mixture that I used was 5 gallons of water and 2 gallons of cleaner. And like I said, it worked out real good. You can see here the water is really dirty, but it's still, good. It's still making bubbles and everything like that, and it's still cleaning, so I don't have to worry about changing it out. And then also another tip, you want to make sure that you make sure the temperature is around 100 degrees, because it actually helps with the effectiveness as far as cleaning. And this is my heater here, and this thing works really good. So when I come back, I'm going to have this head all together, and I'm going to sit it to the side. Then I'm going to remove the right cylinder head off the engine and do the same process. Okay, so I went on ahead and put everything back together in the cylinder head. Everything's been oiled, and just make sure these little spacers here, make sure that they're in the correct spot, because if they're not, it's going to throw off where the actual rocker arm touches the top of the valve, but then also, it has the oil hole like right in the middle of each one of these rocker arms. And then here are the old valves, and as you can see, pretty much every last one of them are bent. And then remember the rocker arm that I was telling you, that I showed you, that was hard to twist? Well, after examining it, look at that. It's got a crack. Let me see if I can zoom in. It's got a crack right there. And this is made out of steel. This is not aluminum. See that crack? That little crack right there. The force that the piston, when it hit the push rod, it cracked it. Look at that. So I did check all of the other rocker arms, and all the rest of them are just fine. Okay, so this is the right side cylinder head. I already removed the rocker arm assembly over here, and yeah, these valves are bent just as bad as the left cylinder head. So check it out. Look at that. See the space? Look at that. I can get my finger up in there. All of them are bent. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove these out of here. I'm going to prep this so that I can go ahead and clean it in my parts washer. Okay, so I've got the head prepped, removed all of the valve on here, the valve stems. All right, so just to give you an idea, let me move this head out the way. See how bent they are? So these are the air intake valves, and then these are the exhaust valves. So you see they should be standing straight up. So when I come back, I'm gonna go ahead and put this inside of the parts washer, and I'm gonna go ahead and clean it up. Okay, so I am all done cleaning my parts, and the part washer worked really good. I've already cleaned off everything and rinsed everything off so that it'll be ready for me next time. And I'm charging my light here. And check out the parts from the parts cleaner. Everything looked great. Look at the head. Check that out. Look at that. It cleaned it. That cleaner worked really well, and it only took about 30 minutes to do this. So this is the left side of the engine, and as you can see, I went on ahead and I cleaned all of the cylinders, and made sure that I lined applied some motor oil on a clean shop rag on the inside of each cylinder, as well as on top of the cylinder head, as well as the mating surface here, just to prevent rust and everything. So when it's time for me to put the gasket on and the head, the cylinder head, I'm gonna just wipe this part down with brake cleaner. And this spot right here, this was just a stubborn little spot here. I'm gonna try to get this off again, but if you look closely, you can see the impact from the valve, and you can see them on the cylinder there. You see that? Yeah, these are the hydraulic lifters too, and like I said, you just take off these 10mm bolts here, lift this bracket up, and then you'll be able to lift these out. So make sure you check those. And then here is the right side. I just removed the cylinder head off of this one, and as you can see here, it's not bad, not bad at all, for over 300,000 miles on it. And here, let me grab my scraper. Oh yeah, and I used a plastic scraper to clean all of this. So it's a little wet because I had the heat on in the garage, the metal was cold. But yeah, all I got to do is just scrape this. I'm going to use my DW40 to clean this up. And I rotate the engine so each cylinder is at top dead center. That'll alleviate any of the debris from falling down inside. So it's coming along really good. And as you can see, the rear exhaust, or the right side exhaust manifold, I left attached to the catalytic converter. I didn't have to remove that, thank God, because look at those, look at the bolts and the nut. You can barely see it, so I was able to just remove the exhaust crossover pipe, that goes right here. Once I took that off, I was able to go ahead and get the bolts out and then lift the cylinder head off, and that worked out perfect. Alright, so as you can see, I removed the retaining plate off of the hydraulic lifters, and these are the alignment yokes here. So it's just real easy. You don't need any special tool to remove them. Just do one section at a time. Don't try to take everything out all at once. And from what I noticed, these have numbers on them. Let me see if I can see. This one looks like it has, it looks like number 9 or 6 on it. So I don't know if the numbers mean anything, but just make sure you put it back in the same spot. And basically all you got to do is just, you know, you want to check to make sure that they rotate freely. So you see how I'm turning it clockwise and counterclockwise real easy with minimal resistance, and it should lift up and down easily. Okay, and then the other thing you want to do is you want to check the roller there. Let's see if I can focus here. Yeah, just, you know, it should roll freely on that, because this is the part that contacts the actual camshaft as it's rotating. Okay, so check that, you know, wipe this off, you know, look to make sure there are no cracks or any damage to it, and then recoat it with some fresh oil, and then place it back. Also, another thing on here, let me just show you this. This is an oil hole here, so you want to make sure that it's facing the correct way, which is on towards the center of the engine. If you notice, there's like this discoloration here at the top. You see how that is? So it's going to be facing towards that side of the engine when you place it back in. Okay, so I'm all done cleaning the cylinder block, all the piston heads, as well as the sealing surfaces here, so everything is smooth. It's a little discolored, but it's still smooth, and that's all that matters. So it turned out really well. So what I'm going to be doing next, I'll be bringing the cylinder heads out from in the basement, and then I'm going to go ahead, put the gaskets on, and go ahead and bolt those down, and I'll be on my way back to putting everything back together. Also, you want to make sure you use compressed air to blow out the holes for the head bolts. What I did was I used my shop vac at the same time while I was blowing compressed air inside of each hole. That way the stuff that came out of the hole wouldn't like go everywhere. It'll get sucked up in the vacuum. Okay, so I've installed the lower intake manifold as well as both cylinder heads, no problems at all. So now I'm just doing a leak down test on the last cylinder, which is cylinder 1, which is what you can see right here. I've already tested the other 5 and they were just fine. I didn't want to show you that, but I figured I'll show you this one here. So pay attention to the gauge here. I'm going to bring it up to about 80 psi and hope that the piston doesn't go and push down. Alright, so there you go. So yeah, you hear a little bit of air coming out, but I mean that's normal. Even before this incident happened, it was kind of doing the same thing. So yeah, so right now everything is going along pretty good. So when I come back, I will be you know, pretty much have everything together, the plenum, and then I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to start up for the first time since doing this repair, and hoping that that actually fixed my problem. Alright, so what I'm about to do now is I'm going to show you the compression test and the results. I've actually already did all of the cylinders and they were all within spec, but I had forgot to record at least one of the times when I did it, so I figured I'll go ahead and, you know, record doing one so that at least that way you can see it for yourself. And as you can see right here, according to the repair manual, the cylinder compression pressure is between 170 to 225 psi. So before I actually do this, there are a few things that I have to do to the engine in order to make sure that this is done successfully. The first thing is to remove all the spark plugs. So I did that, and as you can see, all 6 spark plugs are here. These are the old spark plugs. I actually do have a new set that I'm going to put in after I'm able to, confirm that the engine starts, as well as new spark plug wires. I'm going to be using the old spark plug wires when I do the first startup. All right. Then the other thing is you got to disconnect the ignition system, which is this cable right here. This connects to the ignition coil pack. So just disconnect this, and then that way spark won't be coming out of there. And of course, in my case, it's not. Well, I definitely don't want to do that because I don't have the cables on the actual coil here. Okay, and then the last thing that you want to do is disable the fuel system. So if you look in here, you see the layout of all of the fuses and relays for the entire vehicle. And right here is the fuel pump relay, which I already pulled it, and it came from this location right here. So this layout here is exactly the way it's laid out down here, so it's pretty easy to find everything. Now, a few things I wanted to let you know about this particular compression test that I'm doing. The first thing is when I did it the first time, this hose here, this vent hose, I actually forgot to install this, and I had it capped off with a rubber cap on here, so this side of the engine really couldn't breathe, okay, because I had that capped off. So I don't know if that may have affected the pressures or not. The other thing too is I did it without the system being filled with coolant. The reason why I did that is because I ended up breaking the coolant sensor, and I needed to change that. So that actually took me a day for me to get that part, and I really wanted to get the test done, and I didn't see any issue with me just doing a compression test without the system being filled with coolant, because there was no heat generation or anything like that. But it was full now because I already changed the sensor, as well as there is engine oil in it, so there's engine oil in both times I'm doing this test. The other thing too is this is going to, I guess, be a dry test. It's been maybe 3 days since I did it last, and the last time I did it, obviously I put some oil in the cylinder. So this time I'm not doing that. I'm just showing you, the pressures basically before I actually start the engine. Okay, so I'm gonna hop in and I'm gonna crank the engine over. I'm gonna do a 5 count and see what the pressures are. Okay, so you see the pressure is about 160. Let me try one more time. Okay, so it's about maybe 72, which is, for the spec for it. Okay, so the other thing that's kind of a concern for me is you heard the noise when I was cranking it, and that noise is still there. and I'm not having no clue what that is. You know, I'm hoping that the engine starts, and then maybe I can pinpoint where it is, but I have no idea. Like I said, that is kind of concerning for me and everything, but let me, you know, try to start the engine, you know, see what's going on with if it'll start and if the noise is still there. So down here, these are all my notes here. So cylinders 1, 3, and 5, these are the numbers without oil, you know, basically dry. Okay, and then once I added oil, these are the numbers there. And again, these numbers may not be accurate because the engine hasn't been run in almost 4 months. So there's no oil pressure, you know, the engine hasn't been heated. And, you know, from what I read online, they say you get the best results when the engine is warm. So I may just go ahead and do this test again once I get the engine running and everything is fine. So let me go ahead and put the spark plugs in and the wires and attempt to start her. Okay, the moment of truth. Got the spark plugs in, got the wires hooked up. The ignition system is all connected. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prime the fuel line because, you know, with me emptying out the fuel rail, it's literally empty. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to cycle the key to the on position. I start on like 3 times to fill the fuel rail up before I actually crank to start. All right, so let's see what happens. Yes! Amen. Thank you, Jesus. She started right up. Oh, and she sounded great. Okay. Whew, that hurdle is... Oh, okay. So, I'm not done yet. I need to let her warm up. Also, I'm going to remove the valve covers here on both sides to make sure that oil is actually coming through the fuel rail, not the fuel rail, I'm sorry, the rocker arms, because that's important too. I want to make sure that that's good. Also, I'm going to have to top off the coolant, but hey man, oh, that worked. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that right quick before the engine warms up too much. And then I'm going to come back. You can see smoke right there. Look at that. Yep, see smoke. That's probably just from the exhaust, you know, just burning everything off. So let me go ahead and do that before things get too hot. So at this point, all the repairs are done. Everything's running great. But the question is that I had in my mind, what caused this to happen? Because this didn't just happen overnight. It probably didn't happen a few months ago. This is something that, as I speculated, you know, as I was doing the video and as I was trying to confirm things, what was going on, this is something that was kind of building up. And I thought back all the way to I believe it was 2016. I had to do a torque converter replacement. And before I did that, I wanted to make sure the engine was in good shape, that it was healthy. So one of the things I did was I did a compression test. And when you do a compression test, you're supposed to remove all of the spark plugs. and then test each cylinder. Well, I took the lazy route, and yes, I did. I totally regret that now. But I left all the spark plugs in except the spark plug that was on the cylinder I was testing. And the stress from the compression test, without it actually, the engine running and everything, the pressure, the constant pressure, because you got to remember, it's about 175, 180 PSI pressure. I did that for each cylinder for like 5 seconds. And that stress was put on the camshaft gear as well as the chain. And I believe at that point, that's where maybe the fractures in the teeth, where it started to weaken. And then just over time, which it took almost like 6-7 years for it to kind of catch up, and then finally the teeth kind of worn off. And then of course all of the other warning signs that I mentioned earlier in my video. So my advice when you're doing any kind of repairs, do it the right way. Don't take no shortcuts, because this could have been a heck of a lot worse. If I didn't pull over to stop to turn off the check engine light and kept going to work, the chances are that gear or the chain, one of the two would have gave, and me going over 2,000 RPM, in which that would have destroyed the engine. It wouldn't have been these few little parts that I had to change out. So I'm grateful that God looked out for me, because that was not smart on my part. Wasn't smart at all. So that's what led up to all of the different failures and what it is that I had to repair. Is a listing of literally all of the parts that I end up replacing. I do believe that I got everything. If I happen to have forgotten something, you can just post them in the comments. But these are the 5 items up here that were basically warranty items that didn't, cost anything to replace. And then down here, these are all of the parts. So what you can do is you can pause the video, take a look, take notes. And if you have any questions, you can just post them down in the comments and I'll get back to you. So I did my best with trying to list everything, no particular order, as well as how much we paid for each part based off of our receipts. So even with everything that I did, which I did 30 different parts, I didn't realize it was that many when I was pulling this up. It still only came out to just, a little over $1,200, which isn't bad at all, especially for all of these different parts that, I end up replacing. So it was definitely worth the money to invest in doing this repair. Alright guys, so here are my final thoughts in regards to this repair. Everything was a success. I haven't had any issues or anything since completing all the repairs. Even the repairs of things that failed after the initial crank and no start repair. Today is May 6, 2023, and I started working on the issue last year, October, I think it was 26, 2022. So it's been about 4 months doing the initial repairs, and I'm gonna tell you, it wasn't like hard. I think for me it was more of trying to diagnose what the two issues were, and everything. But once I, prayed about it, I took some time out to kind of think, do research, and just using my over 30 years experience and knowledge of just working on vehicles and how different components work and everything like that. That really helped me out a lot. And also I have a whole slew of tools that I've collected over those 30 years. I think the only two tools, if I remember right, that I had to buy was the parts washer, and then I bought a C-clamp valve stem removal tool, which both of those basically they pay for themselves just with this repair. So there are a few things that I think I would like you all to get from this video. The first is, you know what, if you put your mind to something, you can pretty much accomplish anything. Never make a decision based off of your emotion at that time. Sit back, think about it, pray about it, and have the confidence to know that you can do it. Does that mean that you're always going to be successful? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that. But your mindset plays a big role in your success and your failure. So have that mindset that you can do it. And that's anything in life, not just a car repair, but just pretty much anything. Another thing is to have a plan. So during this whole process, I had to think through how I was going to tackle this, from the point of where was I going to start, which issue I was going to try to solve first, my plan of action as far as like how long I think it was going to take to do the repair, what was going to be my alternate transportation, which that wasn't an issue because I just used our Toyota Camry. Finances, which again, that wasn't an issue because we don't have a car note. We haven't had a car note in I think about 10 years or something like that. So that wasn't an issue because I make sure we put aside money every month just for maintenance and repairs for both of our vehicles. And then also, just, knowing where you're going to get the parts from. Are you going to go OEM parts? You're going to do aftermarket parts. And then also to not be in a rush to buy parts because you don't want to spend money unnecessarily. You don't want to throw parts at the issue. And just go through the diagnostic process, as best as you can, and that'll help you in the long run. Have a lot of patience. That's one thing that I had to have with this job, especially when I kept finding things that were wrong. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm thankful that I was able to find all of the different issues and everything. But if this happened, let's say maybe 5-10 years ago, oh man, I probably would have ran out of patience. Okay? My mindset throughout the whole thing from beginning to end was where I wanted to be at the end of the project, which was back on the road, not with a patch repair, but where our minivan was fully functional again, just like it was before the issues had popped up. That was my driving factor, and then also not having to buy another used vehicle, not having to have a car note, not having to go through the process of getting to know another vehicle again that someone else pre-owned, because we don't buy brand new vehicles. It's just a waste of money. We buy a vehicle that's a couple years old. So and then also having that gratifying feeling of, hey, once I'm complete this job and it's successful, oh man, that's going to it's gonna feel real good, which it does. It still does now. And just to be able to, for people that even watching this video that may say, oh man, you should have junked, you should have did that, you weren't going to fix it. Well, I did fix it. And to all of you all, all I have to say is I don't give up. I don't give up. Okay? Even when the odds are against me. And last but not least, I would say is, I know a lot of people use this terminology of what's a vehicle worth as far as a repair and everything like that. I take a different approach for it, because this repair, I believe, ran about $1,200. But that was more. Other things are also replaced too that weren't wrong, but just because I had removed old parts and those particular parts were going to need to be changed sometime in the near future, so I figured I'd just do it, while I had everything out. But yeah, that repair would have been $1,200. One, wouldn't have been able to get a used vehicle for that price, even if it had 200,000 miles on it. And if I could, I guarantee you it would have needed more than $12,000 worth.
2 miles ahead,
repairs.
Turn right on Michigan.
Sorry about that. Would have had over $1,200 worth of repairs that would have to be done to that particular vehicle. And not knowing the history of the vehicle. I know our history of our vehicle because I've been maintaining it. So that right there by itself, that was one of the biggest decisions to just go ahead and just do the repair, because our minivan's been very reliable. And just making sure that you have space to be able to do this repair. Make sure that you account for when it takes longer than you initially thought to do the repair. And then also be ready to have to buy additional parts that you may not have bought, because you come across something that either you may have broken, just like I did with that coolant temp sensor, and I had to wait like a day or two to go get that. Or it's just something that you found that was on the verge of breaking or did break, and you had to replace it. That wasn't a part of your plan. Have a backup vehicle if you have one. That's something to consider. If you have 2 cars and you can utilize that second car while you're repairing, the one that's broke down, that's actually really good. And also tools, try to have an idea of the kind of tools that you would need as well. Because like I said, I didn't really have to buy any additional tools except the parts washer and the C-clamp valve stem removal tool, which that worked out really great. Okay, so here is the mileage, 329,962 miles. Today is June 10th, 2023. Let me take you under the hood so that you can hear the engine start up, as well as I can point out some of those other issues that popped up after the repair was done. Minivan has been started for about 2 days, so this is going to be on a cold start. Listen how nice she sounds. Almost 330,000 miles. Sounds good. I'll rev the engine after the engine warms up some. So let me rev the engine for you so you can hear how good she sounds. So you see, sounds perfect. Alright, so one of the issues that came up after the repairs were all done are these rear heater hoses that are right back here. There's a total of 4 of them, and what ended up happening was one of the hoses started leaking, and these hoses, I think they're about maybe 15 years old. So they've been changed once, but they haven't been changed. That was probably back in 2005, 2007, something like that. I always had the plans to change them, but the reason why I didn't do it was because it was the location of them. You literally have to remove the wiper cowl in order to do it. And anytime I had this out, I was doing some other repairs and I didn't feel like dealing with those. So what I ended up doing, there's a total of 4 of them back there. I ended up changing all of those out. Just not the one that was leaking, but I changed all of them. So that fixed the coolant leak. Okay, then another issue that came up was the thermostat that's stuck in the open position. So, when I was doing the repair, it was kind of in the winter months still. So it was roughly around 30 degrees outside. And when I was burping the system with the radiator cap open, which is right over there, I noticed that when the coolant fans turned on, the coolant was still flowing through the radiator and it didn't stop. And this was going on for like a couple of minutes. So after doing a test drive, I did notice that the coolant wasn't getting up to temperature of around 200 degrees, which is the thermostat is rated for, I believe it was 195 degrees. And so I did have heat, but when doing anything over 50 miles an hour, the temp gauge didn't really get past the first notch on the temp gauge, which I'll show you that when I'm talking about. So I ended up changing that out and that fixed that problem. Alright, so here's the gauge cluster. The engine's still running. You can see that the RPMs, are pretty much normal. Temp gauge is up to normal, so the engine is at operating temperature. So what I was going to show you is, in regards to the thermostat, how I was able to recognize there was an issue outside of visually seeing the coolant constantly flowing through the radiator, is the temp gauge. So you see where the temperature gauge is here? This is where it would normally be at when doing expressway driving, around 30 degrees. It was all the way either here or just below that while I was driving on the expressway. So I still had heat in the cabin here, but the coolant temp was just way too low. So that's how I can also confirm that there was an issue with the thermostat being stuck in the open position. Another issue that popped up was the TCM. There were a couple codes for non-communication with the TCM. I don't remember the codes offhand. I'll put them up in the video because I had to diagnose it to figure out exactly what was going on. And as you can see here, this is the old one here. As you can see, it's all rusted and everything like that. It's like really corroded. As a matter of fact, this right here, the rust actually went all the way through the metal to the internal components of the TCM, which is what I suspect caused the problem, because it allowed moisture to get inside where the electronics were. And as you can see here, this is the new one that I end up replacing it with. It wasn't a hard job. I think it took more time to diagnose this than it did to actually replace the part. I did have them encode this with the VIN for our vehicle from the place that I had bought it from. The side view of the TCM, and as you can see, look at that. Look at how rusted. So yeah, just by it sitting there and me heating up the garage and it cooling off again and everything like that, it just totally messed us up because there was no issue with the TCM before I started the repair. Okay, so I went ahead and pulled up the diagnostic report that I ran, and as you can see here, there was a code right here that turned up. It was an internal TCM module. Okay, so as I scroll down, this is the trouble code, which is basically pointing to the transmission, P0700. Okay, and then I scroll further down, and the code was a P0605, which was an internal TCM. It was basically a failure. And so basically what I think what happened was, after I did all my testing on the TCM, is that the internals from the corrosion allow moisture to get in, and it messed up the electronic components within the TCM. So me ordering a new TCM and having it programmed with our vehicle's VIN, it was basically plug and play. Really the only thing I had to do was do a relearn. Okay, so thank you for watching my video. I do hope that it was educational for you and that you learned something from it. I know I did. Just remember that you are only limited by what you think. With that, you guys have yourself a blessed day. Be a blessing to someone else, and I will see you in the next video. Until next time.